The men back then who were also feminists for their daughters were not
for
feminist
their
wives.
The other issue has been, even today, by the way, why do men have a say in what the wife or girlfriend can wear?
Another thing that annoyed me was in both the movies, they remarry happily and they're getting that other woman to the second
Now do
wife
the
to
same
now
thing.
do the same thing, make the fulka. They are nice and crisp and starched and white and in their clothes, they're
Yeah.
going outside clothes. And this one is getting progressively shabbier and sweatier.
Yeah.
So the kitchen
No, this
duties.
is patriarchy. I think, firstly, everything has been designed for the male comfort. Myth, legends, folklore, rules of,
It's like that.
engagement in a family. How much have these men been babied? They won't serve their own food. They won't go and pick up their own sandals before leaving for work. The wife has to put them in front of them. Kiran, there's been a slew of films in the recent past taking up social issues. Now everyone is talking about this Mrs., which, by the way, I haven't watched. It is a remake of The Great Indian Kitchen. I'm curious to know, I mean, while of course women and men watch these movies and hopefully something changes, at some level, do you think it really percolates down to the lowest social strata where the change is really required?
We like to think that cinema is a medium that instills change
Yeah.
right down. It's the easiest, most accessible medium. We've had movies which have done that.
Of course.
But there is so much resistance to the messages that the Great Indian Kitchen and Mrs. have been putting out, primarily because I think nobody sees this as an issue amongst the men. They don't see it as an issue. The movies are, you've seen Mrs.?
No, I haven't watched Mrs.
Okay.
I watched The Great
You
Indian
watched The
Kitchen,
Great
yeah.
Indian Kitchen. So, what happens in the movies, and as anyone who's watched them knows, it is about a woman she's a dancer, she's fond of dancing, she's a trained dancer, she gets married into this very traditional family, and then her life starts revolving around the
drudgery of kitchen.
kitchenhood. From morning to evening, making, cooking, everything from scratch, whatever. And whatever she does is glorified. These kitchen duties are glorified. Now, I find that the men don't really see this as an issue because that is how they've grown up with. Maybe it's the men of our generation and the generation that comes immediately after our generation. Maybe the younger generation does see it as an issue. But because they've seen their moms doing it, their sisters serving them water when they come back from out, eating first at the table.
Yeah,
and
that is common even in urban families, I believe. I didn't grow up with a brother, but I hear from a lot of my friends that the mother would wait for the son to come home to eat with him when he was at school or college, and the girl would just take her food into a bedroom and watch TV and eat.
Yes, that happens all the time. And if there's a gathering, a family gathering, the men will eat first. The women will be busy belawing hot rotis or whatever. It's like,
and girls are helping in the kitchen.
While the boys are just faffing around, making themselves
this,
cute.
of course,
this is very common. And if there is non-vegetarian, I don't know whether it happens in any families you knew while growing up, the choicest chunks of meat were reserved for the men. And by the time the women got to the food, there was only bones left or no pieces of meat left. And that's also what happens in the Great Indian Kitchen.
Yeah.
We see that happening. And not to mention, I was physically repulsed by the mess the men left on the table.
Oh, it was disgusting. Actually, I tried watching the movie during the lockdown, and it was firstly very, very slow to get through, like just some tadka and vagar being done and then food being served. And they, of course, have shown a lot of the ugly bits about the entire family-run kitchen that were grossing me out. So I gave up on it. But when one did eventually watch the whole film, I was, of course, filled with rage because the patriarch in the family, her father-in-law, won't even serve his own food.
He wanted.
Like, how much have these men been babied? They won't serve their own food. They won't go and pick up their own sandals before leaving for work. The wife has to put them in front of them.
The toothbrush and toothpaste given in his hand to brush.
Yeah, he tells her when she gives him tea, but I haven't brushed my teeth yet. Get my toothbrush.
And the mug. Yeah. That is ridiculous.
What, do you have no limbs?
And the fact is that he glorifies his servitude. His wife apparently was a PhD.
Yeah.
And he's telling his daughter-in-law, your husband's mother was a PhD, but she gave it all to take care of the family and the children, and that is more important a job than an IAS officer's job. So this deification
Yeah.
of servitude
Yeah. Yeah.
is
As if it's some great virtue.
absolutely
And when she wants to be a dance teacher, she's not allowed to
apply.
apply. So stifling of your own ambition. Also, I mean, other than the fact that she does the swabbing and the sweeping and the cooking and the cleaning, uh, when she tells him in a subtle way that you're very well mannered in restaurants because he is chewing the chicken bone and leaving, segregating the bone and putting it on the side plate.
Plate, yes, and
He
not on the
takes
table.
such offense to that. The fragile male ego. I would go and whack him.
Not just that, another thing which I found very interesting, which was very delicately handled, was the fact that she tells him that when we're having sex, can we
Yeah.
have some foreplay? Because it's very painful for me. And he is so offended
First, he tells her,
that
"You know about all this.
you already know
Basically, are you a virgin?"
about
That is the
the aspersions being cast
insinuation.
on her character.
Yeah.
And then, secondly, that I'm not attracted to you. To do all that, I need to be attracted to you.
So, is it the same scene by scene in Mrs. also?
It is.
He
It
says
is
exact. Could they
similar.
not be a little original?
I,
I watched the promo. I don't watch
No,
the film. How
no,
can you copy
the-
something so blatantly?
it is supposed to be a remake.
Even if it's supposed to be a remake, what about putting some creative input of your own?
No, there was one. And in the last scene where she throws the dirty water from the drain,
Yeah.
in Mrs. She serves it as shikanji.
Instead of tea.
Huh.
But she serves that as tea, big deal.
So it is shikanji.
But does she
So-
throw this water on the face?
yeah, I think she does. I don't remember that scene in Mrs. I don't.
But that was so fulfilling just
Yeah,
watching that.
I mean, we were all getting our catharsis from that
Yeah,
scene.
yeah, of course. I mean, I don't know what catharsis I need.
Not that I do anything in the kitchen at
But
all.
you know, when you watch these movies, and this Great Indian Kitchen is set in Calicut, it's not exactly a village, okay?
Yeah, it's a small town.
Yeah, it's a
Small.
tier 2 city. When you watch these movies, you realize how privileged you are, my God.
Absolutely.
Sitting on this couch and opining about things under the sun and then going back, and there'll be some.
Not having to get into the kitchen.
Yeah.
Not having to get into the kitchen.
It's awful. What a life. The whole prescriptive life for a woman after her marriage, that this is what you will do. But this whole system of when a woman is on her period, and she cannot enter the kitchen and she can't do puja part and she can't touch anybody, and because she's so impure, I think that this actually has been served as a blessing for a lot of women in households where they are the beasts of burden, because those 4-5 days are their only time off.
But
I think this whole concept of purity, impurity must have been introduced by some smart woman.
it was good for those days when you didn't have, any sanitary products and things like that. Maybe
No, I think they also did it because they didn't want to be like, everyone needs a few days off in a
Off.
month.
Yeah, but also it wasn't very sanitary at that point. They didn't have enough to.
Also, it was done for that, you feel?
Yeah, because you'll be dripping all over the kitchen, right?
Oh, is that right? That's why it
you
was
didn't
done.
have you're using rags and you're using cloths and stuff.
I didn't realize
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So I mean, that is probably why.
Oh, okay. I
So
understand.
you're not like completely. I mean, they were not products; they were rags. So some
And
people
maybe
are using.
you smell, you stank.
Yeah, they were using grass in the villages and all that.
Grass?
Yeah, grass and hay and stuff.
Oh
So
my God,
it's
yeah.
not very sanitary. So maybe that was one of the reasons, which is fine. Good. Anything that gave the women rest for 3 or 4
Yeah,
days is very
some time
welcome.
out, yeah,
Yeah,
time off, yeah.
absolutely. But to treat her like an untouchable, that is not on.
Yeah.
But having said that, I found the only woman with agency in this entire Great Indian Kitchen, not Mrs.,
Uh-huh.
is the one, the house help.
Yeah.
She comes, she does her work,
Because I don't think she has a man.
and she is very transactional about her job.
Yeah.
She is the only
And
woman.
she says, I don't tell them I have a period. How will I earn a living if I
Right.
start taking days off on my period days or whatever?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So she was the most empowered of the lot.
But Kiran, in a household where a middle class household where men and women both hold jobs, the kitchen is still by and large a woman's stuff, and she has to still prepare breakfast and pack her children's lunch boxes and then go to work. So Urban Company sends all these masseuses home with the massage bed. And one of those women who I've used uh, recurringly, she was telling me, she says, in the morning I have to manage my children's food and I have to do this, and then I go and do massages, then I go back and I'm so tired. And she was not complaining about it, by the way, because women have accepted this as their fate. It's so indoctrinated that the gender roles and division, that she was completely absolutely comfortable with that. And I was just thinking, oh my god.
No, that reminds me of the time when I used to work. I was working at the Times of India, which was BT, and my commute was from BT to Kandivali, where we used to live. And getting back on the train, the women would be busy shelling peas, cutting vegetables, getting their stuff ready for dinner, which they had to make.
Oh my god.
And this was also in the first class where I used to travel. And the adjoining first class with a little grill, you could look into the male first class for safety reasons or whatever. The men out there talking, joking, singing songs, playing Antakshari. It was such a contrast in those, the inhabitants of that compartment and the inhabitants of this compartment who were getting ready for the evening meal on their commute back.
Yeah.
So the
No,
kitchen
this
duties.
is patriarchy. I think, firstly, everything has been designed for the male comfort. Myth, legends, folklore, rules of,
It's like
engagement in a family, everything has been done. And women have played, have been such, some women have been such enablers of this. See, one is when you have no agency and you can't speak for yourself, I get that. But when you have a daughter-in-law and, or a daughter, when this girl calls her mother, all women in the family refuse to help her out. Her own mom says,
what do you do? Just stay back.
You married a family with prestige. Stay
Just
back.
adjust.
Adjust. The mother-in-law, who seems to be a very balanced and fair person, but even she herself has given up her.
Yeah, but if you see the mother-in-law's daughter,
who's hale and heart,
and living a perfectly non-subjugated life in her marital home, and she's called her mother to help her.
Correct.
So there are double standards there also.
Who was that person? Was it her friend who she keeps talking to?
Yeah, her friend who's also
who has a husband who cooks for her.
Yes, also a dancer.
Yeah.
Which sort of is very interesting because we're talking about how, women still have the onus of making breakfast and tiffin, vagera, vagera. I visited my niece recently. She lives in Bangalore with her husband. The onus of all the cooking is on the husband. Most of it.
Wow.
Another friend of mine, she has two small babies. So one is a toddler, one is around 8, 9. She sleeps till 9. She works pretty late. She sleeps till whatever time she needs to sleep. The husband will get up and when the child wakes up early, the toddler wakes up early, pack the elder kid off or whatever, do everything. So I think somewhere things are changing with this generation of parents.
By and large, still
they're still urban.
No, but even there, else by and large, it's still a woman's turf and responsibility. Like for every such emancipated father, or not emancipated, sorry, every such hands-on and whatever father, there are hundreds of fathers who are still doing what their own fathers did. And I think that men, and I know that a lot of men listen to our podcast from what we've heard them tell us. I think that men really need to, realize that their sons are going to treat their own wives, whether it is with showing affection towards them or having a sense of generosity with spending money on them, is going to be based exactly on what you've done with your wife.
Absolutely.
If you come home and you think your wife is some boring doormat who doesn't deserve a conversation, and it's very likely that she's also a kind who's sort of been trained by her parents to not speak. But if you're a man who comes home and says, put my food on the table, and then is reading his newspaper, and then the food comes and he's eating and done with it, and the wife is just asking, is the food okay? Paneer theek bana hai, dahi theek jama hai. And then you get on and go wash your hands, and then you go into your room and start watching TV. This is not just tier 2 city story. This happens in all sorts of households even today. Affluent households too. Man comes home, eats, watches TV, and wife is telling the staff, khana, even when she's not cooking, is, still organizing still stuck in the chores of the house. And she's getting a sense of fulfillment from that also. I think the
Because
problem is about even training women to speak up for
I
themselves.
think the women expect to get their sense of fulfillment from that the man is well fed. So that
Yeah.
is where the entire crux of the
Way to a
matter is.
man's heart
It
and
is
all
to his
that.
stomach. I mean, what?
No,
That's
I look where the roles are well defined. That some women say that, look, I had to raise the kids and my husband went to work and
that's
it works
fine.
out, and that's totally all right.
That is fine.
I think if by her own volition a woman has signed up for the role, it's fine. But if you just have assumed that it is your duty and your responsibility, and somewhere if you don't know how to uh, toss up a good meal, you have failed humanity.
No.
You know.
Like I always said, my son will say, "माँ के हाथ का Maggi noodles याद आ रहा है." So failed
Yeah,
humanity in some way, but it's fine.
no, that's what I'm saying. Like, my mom's a very good cook, and my mom always encouraged us to not be in the kitchen. Okay, she electively chose the kitchen because she enjoyed cooking. And my father at one point said to her that, I mean, girls must know how to cook. What are you doing? You don't even. And my mom used to say, "You make such a mess of the kitchen. Don't come. No need to enter." And now, of course, she doesn't cook at all. Her maid cooks for her. But the point I'm making is that it wasn't until my dad really had a word with her and said that everyone must know how to cook. And I agree. We should all know how to cook. So
it's a life skill.
It's a life skill, right? But to be straddled with the thing, and in fact, I remember that I had quit working, I had become a young mother, and I just didn't know what to do with my time. So I thought one day that, a friend of mine who's a very good cook used to say that if you don't know how to cook, you can't teach your staff to cook. True.
Which is a fact.
So then I said, you know what, basic cooking I know, but now let me join some cooking class. So I joined some junior tarla dalal type of setup, okay? And one day, it was a Sunday, I remember, I went and I labored over a couple of starters and main courses in the kitchen, and I presented one feast. So my husband looked at me, was frowning, and he said, I didn't marry a woman who's going to be sitting in the kitchen and cooking for me.
How lovely.
Yeah. And I was like,
how lovely.
Yeah, but I was just doing it because it's
You
nice to
wanted
know.
to,
He says,
yeah.
yeah, do it. Teach the staff. But there's no need for you to spend the whole evening cooking in the kitchen to, impress me or whatever. And
it's very interesting that you say that your mother electively kept you out of the kitchen, both
yeah,
of you.
yeah.
For me, I kept myself out of the kitchen because my mother was an excellent cook. And what would happen was every Sunday or every holiday, my father's entire extended family would come over.
Oh.
And they would be there from morning to evening. So her holiday, but she would be slogging in the kitchen. I think somewhere when I was around 5 or 6,
You
the
decided.
light bulb went off. Okay? If you're a good cook, you're going to be saddled in the kitchen. So don't cook. Learn not to cook. Or even if you cook
See
so
how
badly.
our childhood defines so many decisions that we take as we grow up, so, even consciously and subconsciously.
Yeah, because,
Amazing.
Yeah, and to my good luck or fortune, my mother never insisted. She said, as long as you can make dal, rice, and sabji, you're sorted. You'll be able to feed yourself in crisis. That's enough.
Yeah.
Now I feel like, now she's old and I say maybe I should learn her recipes. I should learn all that she makes, and but I still don't make any effort because now I'm too lazy.
Now all these recipes are on YouTube, but it won't be the same as
same.
maa ke haath ka khana. Ayn Rand, because we were all like in 16 or whatever when we were reading Atlas Shrugged and Fountainhead and all, and I remember there's something about cooking and domesticity, and she said it's like leaving circles behind. And when you watch The Great Indian Kitchen, that's why it is laborious to watch, because the whole day long cooking and cleaning is going on. And that was one of the reviews that criticized the film. I mean, it was not a review, it was a review on IMDb from some viewers saying
there's cooking.
Slow film, nothing really happens, cooking. Imagine that is somebody's everyday life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
It's never ending, except for the 5 days she gets her periods.
Exactly.
That's every day for her.
Yeah, but the thing is, if women educate themselves and then they decide to work, then they can, get out of this option. But if a woman doesn't qualify herself and has no work experience or ambition to work, and then she says, I don't want to cook also, then
there's a dichotomy.
Yeah, let's be fair.
Yeah, absolutely. No.
Okay.
But if the family can afford it, I see that family in the Great Indian Kitchen and also in Mrs. They could afford house help. The Great Indian Mrs. had house help. Great Indian Kitchen had no house help except for the days when she had a period. She was doing everything from
that
sweeping.
Was such a
whatever. Another thing that annoyed me was in both the movies,
They remarry, no?
they remarry happily and they are getting that other woman to the second
Now do
wife
the
to
same
now
thing.
do the same thing, make the fulka. They are nice and crisp and starched and white and in their clothes, they're
Yeah.
going outside clothes. And this one is getting progressively shabbier and
Yeah.
sweatier and
And he's doing his yoga asanas in the
the no.
morning.
And she's sweaty and
Yeah.
whatever. And she stopped putting her jewelry. And she, as a new bride, she's got all her jewelry
Right.
on. And
Correct, correct, correct.
progressively, everything is gone off.
Yeah.
Not even the bindi. Because she's just been sucked into this quagmire of
Oh, and
cooking.
when they ask her to take the Facebook video down.
Yes, yes. And she said, I will not take it down.
Yeah. Does it the same thing happen in Mrs. also?
No, in the Great Indian Kitchen.
No. In the Great Indian Kitchen, she said,
yeah,
I
there
won't take the
is,
video
yeah.
down.
Yeah, the same thing. Same
Come
thing.
on, man. What
yeah,
the
yeah,
hell?
yeah, yeah. It's basically the same thing.
Maybe they're making
In-
Punjabi food instead of idli, dosa, sambar.
In Hindi, the same thing in Hindi.
And
And
saying
a cleaner
khana-
kitchen.
And
clean.
don't make rice in the cooker, make rice on.
Don't grind it in a mixer, grind it by hand. She should have taken the pestle and beat that old man on his head.
Yeah. Why? What was that cyanide?
Jolly side
Jolly cyanide.
She should have done that
She should
with
have done
both
that.
of them.
Spiked all their food and got rid of
And
the.
got the whole house to herself.
Yeah. No, Kiran, I just feel I grew up in a way, it was a society, the only society in India at the time where women had a voice was the military kid. They say the army girls lived in a very different universe from women in India at the time. And that book I've spoken about before, Santosh Desai's Mother Pious Lady, it's called. It's about essays from 1980s and 80s, India of the 80s, 70s and 80s.
Mother Pious Lady is taken from the matrimonial
Correct.
advertisement.
So a Mother Pious Lady, girl fair, convented, Mother Pious Lady.
Lady.
And it's called Mother Pious Lady. And then there's one chapter on it on army daughters. And that chapter, and I met Santosh Desai at a Lit Fest, and we were talking, and he told me his wife is an army daughter. So we grew up, most army sons are actually like dingbats and they're wusses. And army daughters are just given so much importance.
They're very feisty.
They're very feisty and they have a voice. So for me, I took it for granted that a woman speaks her mind. Okay. A woman gets a seat at the table. See, these are all childhood impressions one has formed. They may not be realistic in the world outside, but I come from a house where my mom's always spoke her mind. In fact, she spoke her mind a bit too much. Okay, when I would visit my friends who were in school from the civilian society, and there I would see the double standards play out. I would see the mother, saying that you all wait. Let bhaiya eat first. And I would see a lot of this going on there. And I used to be perplexed by it because I used to think that family is an exception
to the rule that you had seen growing up.
Yeah. And I feel privileged to have been cocooned from the real realities of life. But we had a relative who wasn't that well to do. And he lived in Delhi, one of my dad's second cousins. So his wife used to cook and go to work and come back and cook and serve everybody again. And they lived in Delhi, so they always had a stream of relatives. And seeing her work, she was a very bitter woman.
Naturally.
Still is. Okay?
Naturally.
Very bitter because, we were living with orderlies and everything. And she used to always tell my mom, what do you know about real life? This is my real life. And I used to loathe her because she was always snappy and irritable and angry. But my dad had a lot of compassion for her. And he used to say, you have no idea, this is the real India. And this is the fate of a real Indian woman. Today I realized that I judged her and I didn't like her very much and I didn't bother with her very much because she was just always so angry with life and snappy or whatever. But there are gazillions of such women in this country, even today.
Absolutely. And I think about it now in retrospect, I love my father to bits and he really pampered me. He brought me up like a boy, but he had double standards. Those were not applied for my mother. She was expected to give up her job, to raise me, to be the perfect hostess, to be cooking 1 million dishes every time the relatives came. So I see those double standards now when I am older. that I was allowed to run wild, do what I like, fly kites,
Yeah.
just be out of the house the whole day.
Yeah, I was on a tree. I lived like
And yeah,
skating, and I was just outdoors a lot. But I guess that, like, in my my mom had all the liberty too. So I think it.
and it was only much later when I was around 8 or 9 that my mother began taking baby steps to get back into the workforce, and she started teaching. And even then, there would be complaints like, the food's not ready and things like that. And I never realized it back then. But now, in retrospect, I realize that she was also trying to reclaim her agency. Unfortunately, he passed away
Yeah.
while she was transitioning back to the workforce. So then she went into the bank, and all the headache about not cooking on time and all got over immediately because she cooked when she cooked. But yes, the men back then who were also feminists for their daughters were not feminist wives.
The other issue has been, even today, by the way, why do men have a say in what the wife or girlfriend can wear? Is it true for Kirit's generation or Krish's generation also?
I don't know about Krish, but Kirit has never dared tell me what to wear or not to wear.
Man, this is so common.
Yeah.
That is too short, your cleavage is showing. But you're also very decent. Look at you. Nothing is showing. What will he tell you? We'll probably ask you to leave some buttons open. Not button up to here. Yeah.
He'll probably say,
just step out.
No,
just step outside.
Roll up kar lo.
Just step outside is something really scandalous and see what happens.
I'll test it one day.
Yeah. No. I've heard men.
I know what you mean. I've heard them say. Yeah, I've heard them say that. And I've heard women going to the gym and wearing tights, and the men saying, why do you have to wear such tight tights and wear the dhila pajamas?
Because they check out other women, so they don't want another man to check you out. Basically, that's what it is.
That's what it is, which is fine.
But I really wonder if that has changed, and you should really speak to Krish about it.
I don't think you would dare. I think this generation of girls will put the boys in place immediately if the boys start, dictating. Sid should know. Our producer Sid is Gen Z.
Sid, do you dictate to your girlfriend
what they wear? See, I tell you.
Yeah, so
lovely.
Nice.
Lovely.
I think we'll have to die and be reborn again to live in this universe.
No, listen, the dating scene is very bad these days. There's ghosting, breadcrumbing, textuationships, situationships, I don't know what all ships.
Yeah, but all the dating apps are now losing subscription. So those have failed.
Thank God for that.
Because people are realizing, I was reading an article in FT about how the statistics for all dating apps now are looking very grim. And people are now realizing there's an importance of real life connection.
Thank God.
And also this, that catfishing and all that, and lying about identity and ghosting. Ghosting is a very major thing. It's a psychological, impact on people is what has discouraged people from actually swiping left and right.
PTSD.
Yeah, of course, because you do take ghosting personally. If my daughter was to tell me, Mom, I asked a boy out, I would shudder a bit. I see this is my double standard, but I just feel that that's something I never would do, and because I'm still a little old school, and so I'm just saying, but girls today are asking boys out.
They're doing that. Yeah, Krish keeps telling me. I mean, he's in a serious
and boys don't judge them for that, for being too wanton or
not at all.
Yeah,
not at all, and they're quite flattered to be asked out. And there are girls who will buy movie tickets, theater tickets, and saying, "I've got this. Come on with me. I'm taking you out to dinner," and it's lovely. It's absolutely lovely. I mean, I don't know what the guys feel about it.
Yeah.
My son was pretty flattered, but he never took them up on the offers. Somehow he felt, I don't know whether it's Krish or whether it's with other boys, he felt as if a girl is so strong, aggressive already, she'll sit on my head later.
Yeah, so this is the other thing. See, again, even though a woman like you has raised him, right? This, we never hear of any man being described as too aggressive in a relationship. Yeah. Oh, I dated him, but he was too aggressive. And a girl, I've always been called aggressive, by the way. So it's a real touchy topic for me.
I think it's a compliment.
You're so opinionated, you're so aggressive. Why don't you call a man opinionated?
It's a compliment to be opinionated and aggressive.
I mean, it just means I think about things that you don't.
Yeah, and you go out and get what you want. That's fine. And I keep telling.
I'm saying even women will say, "Oh, she's so opinionated," as though it's like some real terrible thing to be opinionated. I mean, it's not an STD. Opinions are not STD.
In these days of social media, sometimes they are.
No, I mean, I'm just
I
saying
know
that
what.
like if you're on an opinion spree, it's different. But it's not a pejorative word.
Absolutely. No, it's a compliment to
I
be
mean,
opinionated.
being
Yeah.
judgmental is now. If I don't have an opinion on Israel Palestine, if I don't have an opinion on Trump, if I don't have an opinion on Trudeau, if I don't have an opinion on all the circus that goes on in the world that we live in,
We wouldn't have a podcast.
we wouldn't have a podcast. And then who? If you don't feel opinions are your feelings expressed in words,
But that also comes from a very
and
secure childhood, Shunali, where you were allowed to voice your opinions and your opinions were taken seriously. Many don't come from their childhood or from that background where they were listened to, or they were asked about their opinions, or given enough information to make
Fair
valid
point.
opinions.
But then don't judge other people and say, "Oh, she's too opinionated."
But that's all they've been taught, to judge people.
Point taken.
Therefore,
Therefore,
we shall not judge the women. We do not judge the women who are in circumstances like the Great Indian Kitchen, but we're just hoping that the men who watch it get a little more sensitive.
why also the
The
mothers who are
mother-in-law-in-laws,
raising
yeah,
yeah
men like that.
yeah.